We'd like to acknowledge for our listeners, just up front, that what you will hear from individual incarcerated women throughout the episodes, you may find to be emotionally charged and even disturbing. So we just want to acknowledge that and make you aware. Furthermore, something listeners probably don't realise is that all of our individual conversations with each woman was recorded inside a state prison. This series was recorded at SCI Cambridge Springs, a state correctional institution in Pennsylvania in the United States. So the noise, if there's any chatter, anything in the background for our listeners, just to understand that we actually recorded inside a prison where the day goes on. The women, the officers, the staff, they all have their jobs. Just because we're there, it doesn't stop or everything becomes quiet. So if you do, as listeners, hear any background noise, please understand that is part of being inside a prison.
Thank you for joining us. We are back for Season 3 of Self-Identities. My name is AJ Nutter, and I'm the co-hoster and director, and sitting across from me in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is Dr. Kathryn Whiteley.
Hello, AJ.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you, and excited that we have Season 3.
Yes.
It's wonderful, and we're going to talk a little bit about our experience at a new state prison for women in Pennsylvania. So this is different than previously. And also then where we go from here.
Yeah, this was very different this year. So unlike our last 2 seasons, we have now gone to a different prison, which is a different experience and very different from what we've been before.
Absolutely. And when we say different, here in Pennsylvania in the United States, there are 2 female state prisons. So one is SCI Muncie, where we had and presented the other 2, what shall we say, season episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This time we travelled to SCI Cambridge Springs in Pennsylvania, very much in the northwest, shall we say, of the state.
Quite a drive.
Right, a little bit rural, but it was lovely, beautiful country and really wonderful people. So we travelled there, AJ, and again, the first time for both of us, even myself after all these years of going into different prisons or even around the globe, this was the first time I'd stepped foot in SCI Cambridge Springs. And it was absolutely an amazing, humbling experience for all of us. But yes, let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because every prison is so different and so unique. And Muncie is very remote and kind of in the mountains. And I kind of expected something similar just because that has been our experience. And Pennsylvania can be very mountainous. But Cambridge Springs is like butted it up right against the town itself, which was really interesting. I know I always have this picture in my mind of prisons being very remote and very kind of removed, and this is not the case at all.
That's absolutely right. I think it was a surprise for us both, knowing that we come to the little township, and within that township, nearly, on the outskirts of that township is this massive building or buildings, shall we say, that's called SCI Cambridge Springs. And literally there are homes that look out onto the prison, whereas the past experience here in Pennsylvania with SCI Muncie, as you mentioned, it is quite rural and it is distantly removed. The prison itself, the state prison, is removed further away from the community. So, we drove up and it just again reminded us, I'm sure, of a college campus. Here we go again.
Yeah, very
we
much.
say that.
Yeah.
And I want to share with listeners, we say that because women often refer here at Cambridge Springs and at SCI Muncie, it's like a college campus.
Yeah.
So that's the term we use because we're replicating what they say,
Exactly.
what they construct in their mind. But it was again, you drive in, you're looking around, there are homes, residential homes around you, which is quite surprising. And I have to share that we must acknowledge and thank the superintendent and all the wonderful staff at SCI Cambridge Springs because they made us feel very welcome, and of course the women themselves as well.
Yeah, they were very accommodating. It was an overall really great experience.
It was. And would you believe something to share with the listeners that what took us back a little bit with the exterior, the building from the outside looking in at Cambridge Springs, was that many years ago, up until I think it was the late 1970s, it used to be a Polish or the Polish National Alliance College.
Yeah.
So it was actually a college before.
Which makes sense.
It does. There you go. Before it was
it's like it's interesting because the houses are like right up to the fence. So the prison, it's like, oh wow.
It is. It's the view that, it's the view with the view, shall we say. But yes, and then in the early 1992, round about that time, it became Cambridge Springs, SCI Cambridge Springs. And for listeners too that aren't familiar, it is a state prison. It isn't a county jail. It is a state prison. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Cambridge and Muncie are the two that house women in Pennsylvania.
That's correct. That's correct. And they can vary, the numbers can vary anywhere from 1,000 to 13, 14, and even sometimes maybe peak as 1,500 incarcerated women for various crimes. But we specifically focus on women that are incarcerated for long to life and life without parole, meaning the women that have been convicted and sentenced to prison for a murder.
Yeah. And this season's a little bit different than the past. One, we have a few less people that we interviewed. We had 8 women this season.
That's correct.
But within that, we had a trade-off where we had more time with them. So the conversations are longer. So in a lot of ways, you're getting a lot more information about each one. And I think it's going to be more immersive for the listener in that sense.
Absolutely. This time round, because we had 8 women as opposed to 10, which we normally do, it did give us the opportunity to talk longer with each woman. And, it basically went from a conversation this time round into their life story to some degree. A little bit like that. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with the listeners in 2026. So, yeah, here we go.
And what did you feel like going into season 3? Now that we've had 2 seasons kind of under our belt, and we knew this was going to be a little different than the past. Like, were you nervous? Did you feel like we had more interesting topics to tackle with them? Well,
AJ, I think as we've progressed, I don't know about the nerves. I get too excited, as you know. I don't need any caffeine. I get too excited. So we're there at the prison. I'm really excited and revved up going through and all the procedures, the correct professional procedures you go through getting inside to the prison. And then, I have to share with the listeners that these women in this cohort had never, well, I'll take that back, other than one woman, none of these women had met either of us, had known about us. So again, I refer that they are a vulnerable population, but they did raise their hands, volunteer. And again, there's no pressure put on any woman to participate. So these women were literally, again, for many of them, coming in blind, sitting down in front of us and thinking, oh my goodness, what are they going to ask us? Because the women, and I share this, the women do not know literally what we're going to ask. All they know is they're going to have a conversation with yourself and myself and ask a bit about their life. Yeah. So, this is something really relevant and important. I think over time, and I've learnt this over the years and with us doing the podcast series, that, you have to be, I always say authentic, but just gentle and ease your way into the conversation. Make sure that there isn't this you versus her or she, mentality that you're sitting there. It's almost like you're sitting there having a cup of coffee with someone that may be a stranger. You're meeting them for the first time and you want to know a bit about them. So I think this time going in, because we realized we had a little bit more time on our hands, I found that I was digging a little bit deeper, in our conversation to find out a little bit more information that possibly due to time constraints previously we didn't have. So maybe a little bit more in depth there, but a number of women, all ages, all walks of life. And I say that literally, some of these women went in rather young, some of them went in later in life. And again, they weren't, shall we say, hand chosen. Yeah. Everything is volunteer. And something for everyone to know too is that when we do talk to the women in the podcast, if they decide not to come back, their information will not be used and we do not put pressure on them. That's the nature of what we do too. Giving them the opportunity and they own their story. So that's something too. It's called agency. They own it.
They do. And if there's any topics they feel like they don't want to discuss, we don't go there. It's very much in their court and what they want to talk about.
That's right. And for the listeners to realize too, if there is a little bit of a pause sometimes, When you're interviewing women, and I've been doing this for many years, if it's for writing their story or researching, when there are pauses, usually that's a time for you to pause as well. They're going through something in their mind emotionally at that moment. And we found that in this podcast series as well, is that there are pauses, but I like to stop and let them have a breather. And then it's their choice if they continue to discuss or move on within that particular discussion point. Some of the women you'll hear, their pause, there'll be a little bit of emotional, you'll hear the emotion, shall I say. But we allow that to happen because that makes it real. Otherwise, it's a cut and paste, shall we say, conversation, which I think is really very genuine with what we do, as opposed to demanding they answer questions. But we engage with them and provide the opportunity that they have this space that literally is safe for them to say what they feel. Absolutely. And I think we have to reiterate that. It is for that few, that hour or whichever it may be, it is a safe space for them as best as they can feel in a prison.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a very different, it's interesting because I'm going through now, well, as people are listening to this, I'm going through editing the episode now, and we're in like an educational kind of space within the prison, in like a really nice little room that we have done the recordings of. Just for listeners to pick up on, there will be a lot more sound in this season because it's a prison and it's running. There's classes going on. You'll hear security, walkie-talkies going off. And it's going to be, I think, a lot more of a real experience listening to this than in our previous seasons where we were more isolated.
That's right. This time around, we had more buildings and rooms around us. So we were in this smallish room, but it was an education room, where there was, where they teach classes and so forth. The activities, and we always say that this is the real deal. Nothing stops, nothing's quiet just because we're recording.
Exactly. There'll be things happening.
And this time round too, I'm not sure, we did have a dog or so come in, one of the dogs with the ladies.
We did.
Which is great. We've had that at Muncie as well, and you have no control when you're recording what a dog is going to do. But it was beautiful to see that because they have a wonderful dog program there, and they're rescue dogs, which is just wonderful to see. So at SCI Cambridge Springs, they work with the local rescue group, and it was just, AJ, as you know, I wanted to take nearly any
you
dog.
Did. You stopped every person had a dog.
I did. Every woman that came along past, I would stop and want to touch the dog, and then of course I asked for permission, but then of course I'd ask, how do we take one home anyway? But all of that is part of also their, shall we say, it's an opportunity for women to care, to have something, someone, something that loves them, and in return, they're teaching, they're training these dogs. It's a sense that they feel worthy. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing.
It's a great program.
Yeah, and kudos to the rescue. I'm putting a plug in there to the rescue agency that works with SCI Cambridge Springs with the dogs or the puppy program. It was wonderful to see.
Absolutely, and it's interesting too, as you'll hear as you listen to this season. Much like SCI Muncie, they have a variety of programs, and some of those are very different than what are at Muncie. And it's really just interesting to hear from the women what has helped them or what has been fulfilling for them to be part of in that community.
That's
there's a lot of that. It's really good stuff.
And that's what they talk about in this new series. The women delve a little bit further into what helps them get through the day. Not just on the outside, if they have any contact from people on the outside, but what actually happens within that prison. And we were really grateful. We got again to be shown around the different, shall we say, programs. We spoke to several different counsellors, and we thanked them as well if they're listening. They were very kind, and it was an education experience for us too. I have a habit, as you know, AJ, of asking everyone lots of questions, but it's the only way we learn every time we go into a prison, and to have some idea about what the women are experiencing. So we thank them also for the people that, beyond the women, that were there sharing what they do and taking us through the prison like a tour, shall we say. It was amazing.
It was great. Everyone was really great. We had a lot of people helping us this season, and that would stop in and be part of our experience there. And everyone was so nice and so kind. And there's definitely a lot of misconceptions about, in my experience, what people people who work in prisons, and like
Yes.
the people that we met and talked to are so dedicated to their job and helping women, and like it's so nice to see that and experience that. Like,
Yes.
to know
Yes.
that there are people that are there that love what they're doing and are doing very good work.
Absolutely. I see it across all the prisons, like, here in Pennsylvania is one example. I've seen it elsewhere when I've traveled around different countries. But absolutely, Muncie, Cambridge Springs, kudos to the people that work there and have shown, we saw it.
There
was nothing sugar-coated. And there are so many people that are very dedicated. So you're right. We have to, just let people know that they are there and they do care. There are lots of people in those prison systems that work there day in, day out.
Yeah, that really care.
That really do care. And you hear it from the women as well,
Yes.
which is great.
Which
they're the best. They're the best. They will soon tell you, if they like someone or not. But being professional, of course. But they do often share that they have someone or a group of people or person that has helped them while they've been there. And it's great to hear that too.
Yeah, one of the things that we are really proud about with this podcast is we kind of see it as like a counterpoint to some of the more sensationalized media out there that is happening within prisons and about women that are incarcerated.
Yes. AJ, I think what's really important to share is that we take time to negotiate with the prison systems, the Department of Corrections. Information has to be sent there for us to allow us to go in to meet with the women, to have these conversations with the women. There's a layering of, shall we say, what we have to do respectfully to be able to walk through the doors.
Yeah.
And then when we're in there, it also depends on the person. But, you have to take a step back and you think, I'm here, I treat each woman, each individual how I would like to be treated. And it takes time and practice, but I found over the years, you go in there and, you're someone that's pretty cocky, confident, overconfident, overbearing, and you're going to get this great story that's going to make your headlines. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
And I think that is and I believe that is part of the reason we've had the wonderful opportunity to keep going back, is that our intention is not to sensationalize, but also how do we speak and engage with each woman.
Yeah, on a professional...
Absolutely, on a and I think that's what I really want to share, is that this isn't, tell me about your life, and I've never approached it that way. But I do see that in other forms, shall we say, of media, where there is a condescending or, they don't even know much about the women or they haven't done their homework.
Yeah.
And it's not a conversation, or it's not even supposedly an interview. It's like, it's very inappropriate.
Yeah, and you'll hear that from some of the women we talked to in this season. You probably have heard that if you listen to the other seasons as well, but it makes it difficult to have nice conversations with them because a lot of them have had negative experiences with that, where people come in and are just trying to get the lines and the story that they want.
Absolutely.
And it makes it really difficult for the women to trust other people because of it.
That's it. And the women have said over the years, and even with the podcast, is that we don't normally share our story because we don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
And I go back to the word, and anyone in the field knows about abandonment. What did that means to the women? Some of the women will say, well, I heard about you afterwards. Why weren't we chosen? Or why didn't we get chosen? Because, we heard about, how things went. And at the same time, they didn't want to put their name down to be part of the podcast series because they have had not the best experience before, or
absolutely.
Someone wanting to take their information, but they never hear from them again. And that's something we do, and I want to share with the listeners, no matter, doing this for years, but even with the podcast series, we certainly follow up with the women. We send letters the old-fashioned way, thanking them, keeping them updated, information where their family and loved ones can get hold of the podcast. So, it's a different approach, but I think that has worked in our favour because we're sincere about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually you have a letter that you might want to share.
I do.
with our listeners.
Absolutely. And this was from a woman at SCI Cambridge Springs. Anyway, and she refers, and it's a letter, but I want to share, it's a piece of paper torn, And I'm so grateful because people don't understand that paper, envelopes, things like this, that's a luxury in science. And some women don't have the financial, access or ability to buy certain things. So this nice little piece of paper turned up in an envelope for us, marked to myself and AJ. And I'll say, and it says, "Dear Dr. Kate, hey, thanks for sending me the update on everything. I am so grateful for the opportunity you gave me. It has helped me tremendously. I feel so much more comfortable about talking and opening up now. Thanks again, and hope to be hearing from you soon." And I'm going to say her name, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. So that makes something in a small piece of paper that turns up in an envelope, and that just summarizes why we do what we do, AJ.
Absolutely. It's really nice that she took the time to write back, and it's nice. It makes it feel good about what we're doing and the time we're putting in, and of course, on their side, being willing to trust us with that.
Absolutely.
That delicately.
And as you know, AJ, since we've been doing the podcast series, we have received, due to the following up, and it's been sincere following up, wanting them to know, because it's their story, it's their life, it's not ours. We don't own this, it's theirs. We have received many letters and cards, handmade cards, and thanking us. But it's deeper, like what Lisa had mentioned here. It's just started to shift, that she feels now emotionally, psychologically, she feels that she can now start to talk a little bit better, not better, but talk more about this without literally without any repercussions. She feels a little bit, so it's helped just to a very small but an important amount of degree shift towards, hey, I feel comfortable speaking that. Because if you can feel comfortable speaking to strangers like us, I think you can feel comfortable talking. Good. I think you are. But again, it really is, each woman is unique, and however they take our experience from the podcast, we're just grateful, because overall what we do, it is an educational podcast. It's not here to sensationalize their stories or their lives. It's educational to help many people understand around the globe, around the world, in or out of the criminal justice system, or loved ones that are in the criminal justice system, or anyone working in the criminal justice system. This is, and you, particularly if you're working with females, this is giving you an overview of the women and that are serving those long to life, and life without parole. Some of these women here in the United States, as we know, can vary in other countries.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, AJ. And again, what a great colleague you are. And we just want to thank everyone and listeners, you also, for taking the time. And we encourage you to, share our podcast when it comes out in the 2026. And if you haven't heard it before, listen now to our previous episodes, because the women, and I'll speak on their behalf, want to thank you and are very grateful for learning about their lives.
Now, if anyone wants to find out more about you, where can we find out more about you?
Okay, so I have my own website, Kathryn M. Whiteley. You just look up Kathryn, Kathryn, M. Whiteley. I'm on my website. I have LinkedIn. I have YouTube. You name it. I'm just about on everything there. But again, you just type in my name. You'll find that. Reach out to me. I have a Gmail account. I won't give that on air, but you can just find my name, and happy to talk or share. And I do a lot of guest speaking as well, and I do a lot of traveling to share the insight of what we do, but also over the 20 years of women's stories. I'm writing one book, and then I've got a second one to do. Wow, never stops, AJ. And thank you, AJ.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Keep listening to the podcast, and we have some really exciting episodes coming out. Take care.